If you're someone who loves the smell of coffee, the warmth of the mug, and the ritual of brewing, but not the jitters, anxiety, or sleepless nights, then decaf coffee probably feels like a miracle. But that raises a simple question most people never stop to ask. What exactly is decaf coffee? Is it just regular coffee that somehow had the caffeine removed? Is it completely caffeine-free? And how do you even take caffeine out of a coffee bean without ruining the flavor? Today we're breaking it all down. What exactly is decaf coffee? How it's made? And why it tastes the way it does? Decaf sounds straightforward, but behind that one word is a surprisingly complex process involving chemistry, water, pressure, and sometimes even carbon dioxide. Let's get into it, right here on History of Simple Things. Despite what the name suggests, decaf coffee is not caffeine-free. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. In most countries, for coffee to be labeled decaffeinated, it must have at least 97% of its caffeine removed. That means a typical cup of decaf still contains about 2 to 5 milligrams of caffeine, compared to 80 to 120 milligrams in a regular cup. So yes, there's still a little caffeine in there, but for most people, it's small enough that it won't disrupt sleep or trigger caffeine sensitivity. Decaf is essentially regular coffee that's gone through an extra step before roasting, where caffeine is extracted from the green unroasted coffee beans. Here's the tricky part. Caffeine doesn't exist alone inside a coffee bean. It's tightly bound to hundreds of flavor compounds, acids, oils, sugars, and aromatics that make coffee taste like coffee. If you remove caffeine carelessly, you don't just lose the buzz, you lose the flavor. That's why decaffeination happens before roasting, when beans are still green and porous. At this stage, caffeine can be removed more selectively without completely stripping away the compounds responsible for taste and aroma. But even then, it's a delicate balancing act. One of the earliest ways to make decaf was surprisingly simple: water. Green coffee beans are soaked in hot water, which dissolves caffeine along with many flavor compounds. Then the beans are removed, and the water, now full of caffeine and flavor, is filtered to remove just the caffeine. The flavor-rich water is then reused to soak a new batch of beans. This process laid the foundation for what's now known as the Swiss water process, one of the most respected decaffeination methods today. The key idea here is saturation. Once the water is already full of flavor compounds, it mainly pulls out caffeine and leaves most of the flavor behind. The Swiss water process is often marketed as the chemical-free decaf method, and for good reason. Instead of solvents, it uses water, temperature, time, and then carbon filtration. The process starts by soaking beans in hot water to create something called green coffee extract, a solution containing everything found in coffee except caffeine. This extract is passed through a carbon filter that traps caffeine molecules but allows flavor compounds through. New beans are then soaked in this caffeine-free extract. Because the liquid already contains flavor compounds, caffeine naturally migrates out of the beans without pulling much flavor with it. It's slow, expensive, and incredibly gentle, which is why Swiss water decaf often tastes closer to regular coffee than other methods. Despite the bad reputation of the word solvent, this is actually the most widely used decaffeination method in the world. There are two main solvents involved: ethyl acetate, a compound naturally found in fruits' methylene chloride, a synthetic solvent used in tiny, regulated amounts. Here's how it works. Green coffee beans are steamed to open their pores, then washed with a solvent that selectively bonds with caffeine. The solvent is later removed, and the beans are steamed again to eliminate any residue. The important detail? The solvents evaporate completely during roasting. What's left behind is just decaffeinated coffee. This method is popular because it preserves flavor well and is more affordable than water-based processes. Let's address the big question. Why does decaf sometimes taste weaker or flatter? Even with the best methods, removing caffeine inevitably removes some flavor compounds. Caffeine itself is bitter, and when it's gone, the flavor balance shifts. Roasters often compensate by roasting decaf slightly darker, choosing beans with bolder flavor profiles, and blending origins to restore complexity. This is why high-quality decaf matters. Cheap decaf often tastes dull because flavor preservation wasn't the priority. From a nutritional standpoint, decaf coffee still contains antioxidants, polyphenols, and trace minerals. In fact, many of coffee's health benefits come not from caffeine, but from these compounds. Decaf may be a better choice for people who are sensitive to caffeine, have anxiety or heart conditions, experience acid reflux, and want coffee in the evening. That said, it's not healthier in every sense. It's just coffee without most of the stimulant. Decaf coffee isn't fake coffee. It's not watered down. And it's definitely not caffeine-free. It's real coffee that's gone through an extra, carefully controlled process to remove most of the caffeine while preserving as much flavor as possible. Depending on how it's made, decaf can taste surprisingly close to regular coffee, or completely different. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.